You've seen the work we put day in and day out, challenging myths, debunking old wives' tales, and exposing poor breeding practices. Ugh. We spent years researching, studying, and applying real-world experiences to perfect the art of science of breeding. Why? Because you deserve the best, most accurate information out there. But to keep this mission alive and growing, we need your support. If you found value in the Bred to Perfection live show, take a moment, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and share our content. It may seem small, but every like, every subscriber, and every share helps us reach more breeders who need to hear the truth, who want to learn what it really takes to create, maintain, and improve high-quality strains. This isn't just a YouTube channel, it's a movement, and you're a vital part of it. If you believe in what we're doing, if you want to help others discover the power of true breeding, help push this channel to the top. Like, subscribe, and share. Together, we make a difference. Thank you for standing with us. Now, let's get to work. Entertaining, informative, and educational. Inspiring content that makes a difference.
This is the Maximus Troy Publications Broadcasting Network.
Join the Academy. This show is brought to you by the Breeders Academy, where we will help you to increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and help you to improve the quality and performance of your fowl.
As a member, I'll provide you a roadmap that you will need to create a true family or strain. Starting with a cock from one breeder and a hen from another breeder, no problem. We can help you to turn your flock of hybrid crosses or mongrels into a pure family or strain, and show you how to continually improve that strain each generation. We'll start by showing you how to select your seed fowl and how to turn that seed fowl into a high-quality foundation strain. Our proven breeding programs and specialty courses are designed to take you step by step through the breeding process. And best of all, I'll be there to help you every step of the way.
We urge you to check it out. You have nothing to lose, and you can cancel at any time. You also have a 30-day money-back guarantee. Simply go to www.breedersacademy.com to sign up.
The Breeders Academy will not only change the way you think about breeding, but improve the way you breed your fowl.
Now, eventually, you do plan to have dinosaurs on your dinosaur tour, right? Hello? Hello? Yes?
I really hate that man.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Bred to Perfection. I'm Kenny Troiano, founder of the Breeders' Academy, and I'm here with my wife, Nancy. What's up?
Toodles! It's called the heat, but here you go. We've got Barb
I know
down
it's
here.
air conditioner time.
Barb goes, good evening. Tired after cleaning the hen house run. Was up to 70 degrees today. Oh my goodness.
I wish it was up just, oh man, I just wish it was 70 degrees. What is it, in the 90s? Almost 100 degrees, if into the hundreds today, right?
No, it's not into the hundreds, but it's pretty much up there. Last week it was, and we were outside in it all day long, and it was, yeah.
I know.
Not fun.
I went and fed my chickens before the show, and I was like, oh, get me out of here. It's like I fed them real quick, made sure they all had water. They were good to go. I looked them over, boom, got back in the house. This idea that California's paradise is nonsense.
Today it is.
We have some weather.
Sometimes. On occasions. But here, this is funny. I got to share this really quick. Josh, he's such a character. Let's get Kenny talking about how effective crossing is.
I know. I just saw before the show, before Nancy took my phone, I was flipping through things. And I think it was Facebook. And I hardly ever go to Facebook. And I always am surprised. And that's one of the reasons I stay off it. But I saw two posts. One was, what's the best cross? And what's your favorite? Another one was, what's your favorite three-way cross, I think. I was like, oh my God. People just don't get it, you know. Cross is just hybridization, you know, hybrid vigor. It's not what they think. The names don't mean anything. And then they start talking about three-way crosses. That's mongrelization. Names really don't mean anything. So it's a topic we do every now and then on crossbreeding. I try not to do very many of them but I just don't like the topic. It's, you know, it's not teaching you anything other than what not to do, and everybody does it. So it makes us feel like we have to do it from time to time. He must have watched some of our videos on the website on crossbreeding.
Yeah.
So I remember talking about it recently.
Oh
or did
goodness. We talk about
Hello?
some things. Who knows? Because we talk about a lot of stuff. So in case you're wondering, Frank is taking some time off. He's got a lot of things going on at the household, and he's getting all that situated out, doing well. We keep in contact with him constantly. We love him to death, and we'll welcome him back whenever he's ready.
Well, he told me he'll be back in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So he's got to take care of some things.
Yeah.
For our members who weren't able to make the members roundtable, we have one on the, if you go in the menu on the website, in the left-hand menu all the way to the top, the members roundtable, or the most recent members roundtable, it's on generation turnover and the founders program. Well, quite a bit different actually from the one we did live, what was it, a week ago?
It was, because here, when we were in the background with the members, we were able to talk about everything and where certain situations apply to the founders program and explain it better. And so, in fact, we were going to move on to clan mating. And then I suggested that, no, Kenny, I think we should redo the episode that we did for the public, because we had to keep a lot of things out. And I think the members deserve to have the full-on message that we were trying to get across.
I don't know if I did it again. What I did was I restructured it so that we're showing how it relates to the founders program and how the founders program relates to it. And because like Nancy said, there was a few sections in there that would have helped explain some things better if I could have used the founders program, especially when it comes to generation interval or generation turnover, meaning the same thing. And because that's a big one. And so we just said, okay, yeah, let's just go ahead and do it again. I may even put that video in the collection of Founders Program videos on the Founders Program itself, because it's so related to it. Because we brought up all kinds of banners. We talked about the various stages and phases of the Founders Program. And what I like about that is I pull up the banners. You know what it felt like is, although I was talking about generation turnover, it was more of a lesson on the Founders Program than anything else, you know, which was nice, which I like to do now and then because we get a lot of new members, you know. So is that it?
No, we have, just to remind everybody, we've got Peter coming up on Monday, so make sure that you're around for that one. It'll be a good episode. Kenny, do we know what we're discussing on Monday?
Oh, he has a few ideas. I think he might have settled on the different types of pesticides, how effective they are, how to use them properly, what to use them on, that kind of thing. The way he explained it to me, it's going to be really good, because there's a lot of people don't know how to take care of lice and mites, you know, and worms and things like that. And although I'm not a big proponent of worming birds, not as a program, but there is a time maybe to go ahead and worm them. But I also use selective breeding to weed out the birds. It's like we talk about all the time. It's nice to be able to have the medicines and the vaccinations, and in this case, the pesticides, to take care of some problems. But sometimes it can be taken care of as far as selective breeding. I'm a big proponent of saying, okay, I got a bird with lice. Let me look at the other birds that it's with. And if it's the only one with the lice or the mites, or it seems to be affected by worms, I like to cull that bird, because I think it has a weakness and it's attracting those things and it's susceptible to those things. So what I like to do is, do that. Just kind of look over the bird, and then I determine because if all the birds have it in the pen, then I may have to treat, you know, because I can't, you know, cull all my birds, but I can cull the weakest links. But it is nice to know, especially in the case of when I do need to treat, that the pesticides that we need to take care of it is there, you know. And I'm sure you can get all that from Peter. But I did like the approach he was going to do. I would like to welcome the new members. For those new members, I'd like to encourage you to begin with the Start Here pages. The reason I'm stuttering is because the way it's written, I always say start with the Start Here pages. I hate the way that sounds, and I always want to make sure I begin with the Start Here pages, and I mess it up every time. But just understand, there's no deadlines, no falling behind, no needing to catch up, no testing. So you're not going to be put on the spot. Take your time, get used to the website, get to know the website, check out the programs and the courses. Once you check it out, have any questions, let me know, and we'll make sure you're taken care of really well. The Start Here pages do take care of things pretty well, though. Okay.
I've got good news for you, Kenny.
What?
Spaz Getty. I love his
Josh.
Yeah. Kenny, I will be rejoining the Breeders Academy sooner than expected, as got a new job earning 4 times my previous wages.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to have to raise my rates for him then, you know, so,
now he can afford it and still save for his wedding. Aw.
That's cool. Yeah.
Big
I appreciate
hugs
that.
to you, Josh.
Yeah. If you're looking to join the Breeders Academy, just go to www.breedersacademy.com. Once you join, I'll do Nancy's work for her. Hold on a second. There we go.
I already did that.
I want it while I'm talking, remember? Once you join, you're going to have instant access to the website. You have access to the Founders Program, the Masters Class videos, Members Roundtable videos, all the programs and courses. A lot of them have to do with the Founders Program. The complete collection of podcasts and live shows, and you're going to get the daily articles. You also have expert advice from Brian Reeder on genetics, Peter Brown, known as the Chicken Doctor, and Dr. Gallardo on healthcare and disease prevention. We do coaching calls. We just have to schedule them. So make sure to begin with the Start Here pages when you get there. Just go to www.breedersacademy.com. Okay. Anything else before we get going,
No.
Oh, you know what I need to do? Hold on a second. I want to play that thing with Brian.
Did you forget about that already?
Yeah, I did forget about it. Hold on a second. Yeah, because I'm gonna be talking about two things. There's two things about that video I want to explain, if I can find it. Geez, where is it?
It's really good, guys. You're in for a treat.
Okay. Where'd it go? Oh, okay, there it is. So what we're going to be talking about today is isolation and the consequences of gene flow. So what we're basically going to be talking about is avoiding outside genetic influences, avoiding contamination, avoiding disease, and all these things risk you have the chance of changing your strain, and we want to try to avoid that. Now, the video I'm going to be playing in a second is something that Brian and I recorded a while ago. A lot of times he comes on and he teaches what I want him to teach, and then sometimes he comes on and he teaches what he wants to teach, and then he's able to use them for his channel too. And so this is like a 2-minute video that he put together. Actually, just posted it today, and it just seemed to be so relevant to what we're going to be talking about today that I want to play it and then go on. And what the other thing about the video was listening to it, because he's going to be talking about salvage breeding, which I find really fascinating. And what I did was I created an outline I may even do it next week on, I don't know where, I thought I had the whole title of it already, but it's going to cover how to use salvage breeding, not so much the importance of it, but the relevance of it, and how not clan mating, but gene shopping comes into play, which I'm not going to get in. I'm going to talk a little bit about gene shopping, but I'm not getting into the nuts and bolts of it. For my members, because they've been asking about it, we will be doing a members roundtable / masters class video on gene shopping. I was going to just fix up the one we already recorded, but I just didn't like the way we recorded it at all. And it doesn't seem like I'm able to fix it the way I want it. So we're probably going to have to come on and re-record it. I don't know why I'm tongue-tied today. But so let me play this video with Brian, and then we'll go on. Let's see, where is it at? Yeah. Salvage mating and gene chopping, is that going to be one of the things you're going to talk about too?
I am. Yeah, I want to go in depth in salvage breeding, because all of my research was salvage breeding. I mean, I've told you many times the tale of when everything went to crap and I ended up with, 7 birds and none of them were the same breed or variety.
Yeah, because we talk
that
about
all
the
became
time
salvage
how
mating.
Starting a strain is one thing, but starting with the right birds and starting right in the beginning is a big deal, because you can spin your wheels forever, not quite getting there because you have so much to clean up and so much to weed through.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's a matter of either buy your Adam and Eve or you got to make them.
You got to make them. Well, and that's something, there's a friend of mine who's also geneticist that we have talked about for decades now, is that it would be so simple if you could just go out and buy ready-made variety X and bring in and just breed to yours. But then when you get variety X, they've got all these problems and you're going to have to remake them. So you have to literally create your outcross materials. And that's one of the reasons that this whole family umbrella breeding method that the old folks used to use, that I always go back to, was so useful. Because if you've already been working on your Colombian rocks for a decade and you've been working with your black Wyandottes for a decade, you've already cleaned everything up. You're ready to go. You don't have to go in and start over with something and go through all of that. One thing that I think, especially new people, I don't think new people understand that when you get new chickens, no matter where they come from, they are going to go through a transitional phase for 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 generations where they adapt to your environment and your care and your observational ability. They have to adapt to all of that because they're coming from a very different situation.
Not only are you going to have to select for conformation, type, and color, now you're going to have to select for health and vigor and disease resistance too. So
Exactly.
yeah.
You're going to have different pathotypes, even if it's the same pathogen. You're going to have different pathogens. It's one of the things with newly imported birds. Everyone just, oh, they're imports. Oh, and they lose their mind over these. Oh, it's
Yeah.
imports.
Yeah.
Except that the imports are always the worst birds ever.
Who says they're the best birds they sent over? You know what I mean? So, and
Well,
who says those guys are good breeders over there? You know what I
there's
mean?
that. But even if they sent the very best birds from the very best lines, what's going to happen with import birds is when they get here, they're going to encounter new pathogens that they have no resistance for. And so you're going to see.
Kenny showed me that video earlier, and I'm like, and then it switched over. He was in mid sentence. You're gonna see, and I'm like, where's the rest of it? I want to listen to the rest of it. I mean, anytime Brian comes on, it's just so interesting, all the things he has to say. But I have a question for you, Kenny, because you was talking about it. I haven't heard this term before. So what is salvage breeding?
The old timers, and some people still do it today, instead of bringing outside blood, they may have had a family of birds, but they might have had a pretty good sized family that shared a lot of different characteristics. And we see this from time to time, even today. But you would go on let's say a breeder's farm, and they would have birds that were like Dom. They had birds with a certain leg color, a certain comb type. Each bird on their farm had a different trait, a different either a benefit or a detriment that it's like you hold on to certain birds because they have that particular trait. And then whenever they needed a certain trait to fix their fowl, they would do like a gene shopping within their yard, where they would go and they would select the birds that had the proper genes to add into their family, and then they reconstruct the family, and then they would need a little bit of this, and they would go to that, and this would be form and structure of the bird, and it would also be the purpose and the purpose of the bird for which it was bred. I was going to use a different word, but I don't want to do that. So some breeders were able to do that pretty well, and then some didn't. Some understood the traits that they were getting and what they would get when they bred certain birds together. They would understand the results. Today, we have the benefit of genetics. And if you understand the traits that the birds have, the genetic factors of those traits, then you can select better. And if you understand how to match them up properly, not only will you be able to take advantage of that trait, but you'll be able to do it in a way that trait isn't just temporary. Because if you match them up wrong, you could either you gain a trait, maybe you want it, but you may lose another one, or you may lose the intensity of a trait, that kind of thing. Because some traits cancel out others. Some make them lose the intensity, and then some show, but you don't know whether they're pure, or they could be, you don't know if they're homozygous, they could be heterozygous. And so understanding those traits, understanding how they work, understanding when you put certain birds together, what you're going to get and get the result you're going to get really matters. And so when he did that video, two things that pop in my mind. It kind of goes with what we're talking about today, which is gene flow and isolation. But it also, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, but that idea of salvage breeding and gene shopping, I listened to it. I started writing notes right away and put together an outline. And I was showing Nancy, I go, we might even just do this one next week. What I'd like to do is get Brian on to talk about it, but he's just so busy right now. I talked to him, and he's just overwhelmed with his business right now. He says he's just completely tuckered out. He comes in the house, sits on the couch, and immediately falls asleep. He just doesn't have the energy to do a show right now. But I'm sure he'll come on when he can. But I think I have enough of an outline to really talk about it,
Well, let me ask you a follow-up question on that. So what you're saying is salvage breeding, meaning you're taking from within the family?
I think I left some out. It's also, how do I want to explain this right? It's also a way to fix a family. I remember he might have said it in that video too, and I remember him talking about it before, where and it sounds a lot. I'm all over the place because I'm trying to straighten this out in my mind. You know that program that I have called improvement through reduction has a lot to do with genetic drift, has something to do with gene flow. Like here's the difference between the two. The improvement through reduction is very much like his salvage program, but a little bit different. There's some things I would do differently, but it does have the elements of gene flow and genetic drift. And it's just a really cool way to fix a family that's struggling. Let's say a family gets hit with disease and you need to find a way to bring it back so you don't lose them. It's also a great way to create a family from birds that you got from another breeder. Let's say you go to someone's farm and you want to replicate what he wants to do. The same process works for that too. Now, I've seen it many times where people had predators come in and wipe out a bunch of birds, and they were only left with a handful of birds. Well, they have to salvage that particular strain. The improvement through reduction is a good way to do it. Gene flow and genetic drift are components of that. Does that answer any of your question at all?
No.
Okay.
Okay, well, let me just say this. So when you're talking about salvage breeding, you're talking about you're taking within the family to salvage the whole strain.
Not all the time. Sometimes you're bringing outside blood,
But that's a bad thing, right?
Not, if your birds don't have what it needs, you have to go outside to get it. But you're also bringing in other faults. You're bringing in other problems. Just because the phenotype shows all the traits you're looking for, or hopefully all the traits, doesn't mean that bird doesn't have problems hiding within it. Could be disease. Could be it could lower the resistance for disease. It could be a defect, some deleterious gene. Could be progressive white for all you know. So whenever you bring in outside blood, you take a risk. But if your birds just don't have what they need to move forward, sometimes going outside the family is something you might have to do. Just know that when you bring those birds in, the birds you have right now are going to change. They just are.
But that's not something that you look to do when you're in the middle of your breeding program, say in the foundation stage. That's something you do in the beginning, right?
Either in the beginning, or let's say your family takes a hit. Weather comes in and wipes out a bunch of birds. Disease comes in and wipes out a bunch of birds. Predators come in and wipe out a bunch of birds. Okay. Or you just weren't breeding them properly. Let's say you have a family you've had for a long time and you weren't breeding them properly, and they went in a direction that you don't know what to do about it. Okay. For a few generations, you bred them with the wrong birds, and now they have traits that you can't seem to get rid of. Okay. Could be performance traits. It could be structural traits like type or conformation. They could have the wrong station also. There's something about them that they're just wrong, and you need to find a way to fix them. That's when that comes into play.
Okay, then at that point, you're basically starting over when you're bringing in outside blood, because you're recombinating all the genes.
Whenever you bring outside blood, which is basically gene flow. Gene flow is similar to outcrossing, crossbreeding, infusion. Anytime you bring genetics or genes from outside the family, they have a huge influence on that family. It's not that they change them a little bit, they change them completely. They're just not the same birds that they were before. Okay.
All right. So you've said here that this is a statement from you. If selective breeding is the engine that drives improvement, isolation is the steering wheel that keeps it on course. Yeah. You want to explain that a little bit?
Well, think about it. It's like when you have a family, how do you improve them? Through selective breeding. You're deciding which traits they're going to move forward with, which traits you're going to cull, and you design or decide how that family is going to progress and how they eventually are going to turn out. As long as you don't bring in outside blood, you're going to progress, and you know what you're doing. You're going to progress. Isolation is what keeps them there. Keeps them so that they're not falling behind or having any kind of contamination from outside sources. like I said, anytime you bring in outside blood, they have a huge influence on your birds, and most of the time in ways you're not going to like. But isolation is what keeps them, intact, as is, so that they don't change.
But before we talk about isolation, I think we need to talk about the consequences of gene flow. So let's start there.
Well, let me say this real quick too, before we do that, is there's many variation is, okay, let me say this. Variation is the mechanism for change either in the right direction or change in the wrong direction. And it comes from many sources. Like we say, it can come from genetic drift, it can come from gene flow, natural selection, it could come from how we select too. We could be selecting them wrong, actually. Okay. And those variation will decide whether they evolve, whether they change, or whether they become a species or even a strain. Okay. So just understand that too. So gene flow is basically, it's like it says here, gene flow is the exchange of genes between two populations. So if I have a strain, I bring in outside blood. I've got crosses, I've got hybrids, basic hybridization. If I start mixing in other blood into them, I move from hybridization to mongrelization. Okay. They don't become a strain until the flow of genes stops. Then through selection, you create a strain from that. And depending on the quality of the birds you're working with will determine how much of a strain or how soon that strain how soon that group of birds becomes a strain. Okay. So go ahead.
So you're basically saying that in gene flow, when gene flow subsides is when you're starting to get your offspring coming consistent and uniform.
When gene flow stops, when the flow of genes from the outside stops, that's when you start to create your strain. That's when they have the opportunity to become a strain. Gene flow comes in many ways. In the wild, it's just a simple of, where's that one drawing, which is really good actually. Where you have, in the wild, you have like, let's say a barrier. In this case, let's say it's a mountain range. Okay, so the birds, you have a certain type of bird on one side of the mountain range, you have a certain type of bird on the other mountain range. And if one of these birds happens to fly over the mountains and infiltrate or breed with the other ones, that's gene flow. And a little at a time, that group of birds could change into a whole new species. Okay, unless that bird dies, the offspring doesn't make it, they don't adapt properly to their surroundings or environment. But if the environment and their surroundings are favorable, there's a very good chance that those birds will change. And we see this with our birds. I mean, gene flow is a evolutionary biological term, but it's very relatable to us because it's simply outcrossing, crossbreeding, infusion, or even random breeding. And when I mean random breeding, it's when we see farms that have multiple birds. They're not closely related. They have contrasting characteristics, and they start breeding them together. They start seeing differences. They see different offspring, different results. And until they stop doing that and start breeding within a family, will they start seeing something form that we can later call a strain. Okay.
Yeah, because Kenny and I were talking earlier, and when he was explaining to me, and I was looking at this illustration that he has here, and the birds going over the mountain and basically contaminating the other strain of birds.
That's basically what they're doing. You're right.
That's basically what they're doing. And I'm like, okay, so jungle fowl, they came from different islands, and
different jungles,
in different jungles.
Different and geological range.
Yeah. So. And so I'm thinking, okay, so some people put some in their boats, want to take them for a ride. They went over to another island, they got out or whatever. And they started, changing the type of, like the Ceylon. You got the red jungle fowl over here, then you got the Ceylon over here. And so then they brought the red jungle fowl over to the Ceylon or Ceylon, I never say it right. And poof, now we've got a new variety. And he goes, it's not quite like that, And so you remember what you said about that?
Well, yeah, you were trying to make it sound like we have all these domestic chickens and all these different variations and varieties is because the jungle fowl got together and they start producing other types. And I'm like, no, that's not exactly how it happened. Is that we humans were grabbing birds from this flock, grabbing birds from this flock who happen to be a different type of jungle fowl, taking them home with us, and breeding them. And then whatever they produce, we either went with it or we culled it. And but that took like thousands of years for it to happen too. So, but yeah. But all the chickens we have today came from the jungle fowl. Do I have that banner here? Which is a really cool banner, actually. Did I take it off of here? Oh, I did.
Did you? On the jungle fowl?
Yeah, it was a really good one too. Probably because I save it more for the members. But a good way to look at gene flow is crossbreeding, outcrossing, infusion, random breeding. But basically, it's the enemy of all improvement. So anytime you're making progress and you've seen that the offspring are better than the parents and you're going in the right directions, God, the last thing you want to do is bring in outside blood and just mess up everything. It recombinates the genes. You're basically destroying the family integrity, the genetic integrity of that family. Okay, especially if you start seeing uniformity and consistency and they're starting to be predictable and repeatable. Anytime you bring in new blood, you just start it completely over. But it also increases genetic variability. So you're going to see a lot more traits you weren't seeing before, and it decreases gene frequency. So a lot of the traits that you could depend on coming out of the birds or expressing in the offspring, you're not going to see now. You're going to see differences. You're going to see they're not going to be all peak comb like they were. Now they're going to be straight comb too, let's say. They're not all white-legged, Now they're going to start showing yellow and green too, that kind of thing. Now that they're not silver, duckwing, now they're going to have a little red in that silver too. So when we destroy gene frequency and we start seeing an increase in genetic variability, that's how we know that we destroyed the family right away. And here, the reason I was going to say that I got sidetracked is a lot of people think, well, these birds look just like mine. They have all the same traits. Mine are red. Those are red. Mine are green, let's say yellow-legged. Those are yellow-legged. Mine are peak comb. Those are peak comb. We have good gene frequency. We have real low genetic variability with our family, let's say, because we made the progress we're looking for. For some reason, we think we need to add their blood to ours. We think that they share all the traits. We even think that not only do they share all the traits, but they maybe excel in some others like function traits, performance traits, things like that. Well, those are polygenic. They're not going to pass to your family in one generation anyways. It would take multiple generations of selecting to the highest intensity to get there. So that wouldn't work. But just because they phenotypically look like mine, I bring those birds into mine, I'm going to see so much variation. The gene frequency I once had, now I don't have. I'm going to see so many different traits that I wasn't seeing before just because they're hidden. A lot of recessives that I didn't know were there are going to all of a sudden show up. I might start seeing some defects. It just completely destroys your family. You think, wow, I'm having issues. If they were smart, they'd select their way out of it. They would breed their way out of it instead of add blood to do it. They say, okay, I'm going to breed this one. I feel like it needs it. I'm going to put this bird into mine. And guess what? The first time you breed them, the offspring come out. Too bad. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Okay. You start breeding them as a family, all of a sudden, 3 years, 4 years down the road, they're complete. You see stuff you never saw before. And you start getting that sinking feeling and you're like, what did I do? And at that point, it's almost impossible to fix them because you have very little of the birds you had before. And it would take having the birds that you had before, getting rid of everything else and starting fresh with the handful of birds from 4 years ago, and hoping that they're old enough to they're not too old to even do anything or actually recreate the family. I don't know. It's just it's a scary thing, you know.
Lee was reading my mind. Hybrid vigor, the bad and the good enhances. Yes. I
Hybrid
was
vigor. No, put that back up.
okay.
Hybrid vigor, the bad and good enhances. Yeah, but remember, Lee, you know, they don't, it's not, it's only temporary. That's the one thing about hybrid vigor is they do seem to be pretty good in the first breeding, but after that, they're unpredictable. You can't repeat it. See, hybrid vigor is a funny thing that it does some crazy things to the offspring. It makes them bigger, better, faster, stronger, and smarter than the parents. They're definitely better than the parents. But it's not genetic. Okay. So what you're seeing is a falsity. It's not a true representation of that bird genetically. So when I go to breed that bird, I'm not going to see those same traits. I'm not going to see them, especially at that level, in his offspring, because they're not real. Okay. Hybrid vigor is very temporary. It's not inherited, so it can't be passed to the next generation. Hybrid birds are the product. When you breed unrelated birds together, the offspring that they produce is the product. You really can't move forward with them. That's why the only way you can move forward with them, but it takes some work and some time, would be the Founders Program. That's why I create the way I did. That's why we have the cleanup process. That's why the cleanup process exists, because it takes birds that are unrelated and actually clean them up in a way that you can create a family from it and move them forward. Without that, you're just always going to have those issues. You're going to have, they're not going to be uniform. They're not going to be consistent. They're not going to be able to repeat themselves or actually be predictable in any way. And if you get all that genetic diversity, there's no way they're going to repeat themselves either. So I was telling Nancy was talking to me early about it. She was making a big deal. All they want is hybrid vigor. All they want are those hybrids. Well, honestly, I'm a firm believer that from what I've seen and talking to people, most people don't know. They've heard the word hybrid, but they don't really understand what that means. They've heard the word heterosis or hybrid vigor, but they don't think they really truly understand what that means. All they know is they bred two birds together that had traits. This bird had traits this bird didn't have. This bird had traits that the other bird didn't have. And they have certain performance ability traits that they like. And they think by putting them together, they're going to get the best of both worlds. They think those two birds are going to create a great bird. And they kind of do in some ways, but it's not blending like you think it is. It's more of you still have the genetics in that you have the dominant. It's going to hide the recessive still. Two recessives are going to eliminate the dominant. Okay. But you still have the polygenics where the hybrid vigor actually takes over. So it seems like the bird's better than it should be, or than you would think. But as you start breeding them, it's the polygenics that lags behind. That's why they're not as good as they were when they were first crossed, because you didn't intensify the trait. You didn't breed it in a way that increases its intensity. And so over time, it just diminishes and becomes unpredictable, and you get offspring of all types. So I think when people put birds together, especially when it comes to American games, they have this idea that two birds make a better bird. The purer they are, the better they will be. But if they're already crosses or mongrels, that's questionable. But if you create a good bird from that, you just can't do much with it after that. So I really believe that most people really don't understand what hybrid vigor is or what it means.
Well, I kind of think I can correct me if I'm wrong, Lee, but this is how I was seeing your statement. Hybrid vigor, the bad and the good enhances. You have the hybrid vigor where you put the two together and you got this like perfect bird. There's your good. So you think, but then there's some bad that comes along with it. So I think he understands what hybrid vigor and all that does. The one thing that I was talking to Kenny earlier about is he was saying people don't understand what hybrid vigor really is, and that's all they want. And I'm like, people out there don't understand what hybrid vigor is. I just assumed everybody knew what it was and what it did. So I was a little surprised to hear that.
Not when I talk to them. It's like there's so much. There's a show I want to do that talks about all the things most breeders don't know. Meiosis is one of them. The effects of meiosis and how it works. It would wipe out all their thoughts about, putting two birds together and hopefully getting a better bird, or getting a bird that has a combination of all the traits that they're looking for. What was the other ones? Well, gene linkage, polygenic inheritance. There's a lot of things that would just totally disprove all the things that they do or the reasons they do it. The idea of adding new blood to refresh doesn't work because of meiosis and the way polygenics works. Okay. So the idea of crossing two birds, just getting a bird, just randomly getting a bird from here, randomly getting a bird from here, thinking that they have the traits you're looking for, or they saw that there was something about them they liked, they put them together thinking they're going to get instant family. Well, that doesn't work either, because of those things. So I had it's a huge list. I was like, wow, I don't even know if I can get through all these in one show, but it would be a really good show to cover because it might, a lot of things we talk about here, it's my hope that I want to excite them to become breeders again, or to become a breeder for the first time. That's my goal, actually, to make them look at things differently and maybe approach things differently so they can get a different result, a better result. But I just see a lot of people doing things. I know we say it all the time, they're doing it wrong. Okay. But they don't know why they're doing it wrong. They don't know that there's a better way. And I hope by talking about some of these things and that we're not talking over people's head, or hopefully we're not making it too difficult. And maybe if we say it enough, and I'm a big repetitious kind of guy, hopefully if we say it enough and maybe do it in different ways, that maybe a light bulb will go off and they'll think, wow, yeah, I didn't think of that way. Now I understand why I shouldn't add blood into a family my parents or my relatives have had for a long time, or thinking that I'm going to spend $1,000 on these birds and get another $1,000 for some other birds and just put them in a trio method, and think I'm going to have a family within 5 years. I'm going to have a family. Well, it doesn't exactly work like that. So.
Well, it's really funny. I know you're a big one on repetition, but we've been married. This July will be 44 years. And I hadn't thought of it this way. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. Is earlier you had said you take a black-breasted red and you take another black-breasted red, and you think because they're the same variety, you can put them together and you're not going to get a mishmash of genes and all that with the meiosis. And you had just stated earlier that no, because this black-breasted red has so many traits in it, and this black-breasted red has so many traits in it, and you're putting it together and you're mixing everything together. It's not like this one is being bred to the same strain, the same family. It's being bred to a completely different family where somebody had bred it differently, selected it, the offspring differently and all that. So, I mean, it's crazy how common sense, you just like, oh, yeah, I didn't think of it like that.
It's not always the phenotype of the bird, although that's all we can select from. It's the genotype. It's what's hiding underneath the bird that you can't even see. That's going to come back to bite you. Okay. But it's not just that, because the monogenic traits, like the dominant recessive traits, are very superficial when you think about it. They only change the bird a little bit, just the minor things about the bird. It's the polygenic traits, which makes up most of the bird, that matters the most. And the only way to take advantage of the polygenic traits properly is to breed them in a family setting and breed them in a way that you're going to be able to select the highest intensity generation after generation, and you're not going to see that in a few years. You know what I mean? So yeah. And I think that's why people give up. They get not lazy, but they get discouraged because within a few generations, they're not seeing what they want to see. They're actually seeing what they need to see, and they don't know it, And so then they get into adding they get into adding new blood, outside blood, thinking that's always the answer. And hopefully through this, we're going to show it, because not only are we showing the consequences of gene flow, which is the outside influences, I'm hoping to kind of get into because we're getting kind of long, and we're going to have to fly through the main part of it, is the isolation. Getting the bird you need, getting the genetics you need, maybe doing the gene shopping that you need to do, but get them to a point when you're not bringing in outside blood like gene flow. And now we're going to isolate the genetics. We're going to fine tune them into a family, and we're going to protect the integrity of that family. And over time, they're going to get better and better. And the last thing you ever want to do is add outside blood and just ruin it. Okay. So this is a really cool term too, that I came up with when I was putting it all together. While gene flow changes and destroys the strain, isolation preserves and improves the strain. That's it in a nutshell right there. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so I believe that when we're talking about a strain, isolation becomes one of the most powerful tools in the breeder's toolbox. I think a lot of people take it for granted, because it's going to protect a lot of things. It's going to protect the integrity of the genetics, the traits that they carry as a family. But it's also going to protect them as far as diseases and other outside influences. So let's just see if we can dive into some of these. Isolation preserves the desirable traits. Basically, so if we get a family, we get them where we want them. They are uniform and consistent. They are predictable and repeatable. Man, the last thing we ever want to do is bring in outside blood that's going to disrupt that. Maybe they're not perfect, but over time we can improve them. Where's that one? This is a good example, and I'm so glad I took the pictures when I did. Well, I don't have okay, I'll have to use this one. So the top one is my Adam and Eve. It was the original Colonel Givens cock and hen that I started with. Now, maybe I just had the right, I guess it is, I guess what I want to say is I had the right mentors that were never into just adding new bloods to fix your problems. So I was right away okay with keeping them pure and making them into a family. Little did I know that they were just way off. They just had everything wrong with them. Conformation wise, I mean, especially the cock, if I were to tell you and describe his body and you weren't able to see his picture, you would think, oh, it sounds like he has the right conformation. But type wise, he's off. He has an improper type. Where the hen, she has the wrong conformation, she has the wrong type, she has the wrong color. And I never added outside blood. Over, what is it? We're going past 30 years now. And I just kept improving him, using the Founders Program, using selective breeding, locating the genes, or letting the genes or variations express that I found interesting, and I would exaggerate them, culling anything that didn't work for me. And the ones on the bottom are what they are today. And that was without adding any outside blood. So the last thing you want to do when you start making them into a family, and the Founders Program is a good example of this, is your Adam Eve. Your Adam and Eve is not only the starting point, but it's also the end point of adding outside blood. Okay. So I'm going to take that Adam and Eve, I'm going to run them through the cleanup process. And if I do everything right, within a few generations, I'm going to be into the foundation stage and starting to fine tune them. I'm going to preserve, as I'm working on them, I'm not only going to improve them, but I'm going to preserve their performance ability, and I'm going to improve them. Okay. I'm going to improve their health and vigor by eliminating the sick birds, not using medications. Okay. Over time, they're going to become more disease resistant. I'm going to improve their conformation and type. Their color is going to improve, and I'm going to improve their temperament as well.
Now, when you first mentioned to me today about isolation, I wasn't sure where you were going with that. And then when you described it to me, I'm like, okay, it's basically biosecurity. And yeah, basically biosecurity, not letting anything in that doesn't need to be in your family or, for say your farm.
It's like another barrier.
Yeah.
It's like that mountain that we saw in that one picture. It prevents them from contracting disease and becoming ill. Okay. It's like when I haven't done it in a long time. Every bird on my farm was born here. But if I would bring them, I would definitely quarantine them. I'd feed them last. And I would watch for anything that would convince me, that would prevent them from becoming part of my family. Like that one hen, that Johnny Jumper hen I brought back from a friend of mine to create the Sangreal. It took me forever. I think I might have waited 6 months before I bred that thing, because I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to have any issues. And I created a whole new strain, which was the Sangreal. But so isolation increases genetic consistency, like we were talking about. Eventually, they're going to resemble their parents and improve on their performance traits. And over time, it's going to remain stable. Variability is minimized. So I'm going to see a lot less genetic diversity. And again, I'm going to see more uniformity, consistency, predictability, and repeatability. Okay. And basically, if you ask any breeder who really knows what he's doing, understands his family, predictability is everything to him. Yes, they have to be uniform and consistent, obviously, but that predictability means everything. When I see a clutch of chicks, and they're all the same size and quality and color, and there's no difference between the whole clutch, that's exciting. If I have a clutch of chicks and I'm seeing little variations in their shade of color in their chipmunk, and I get one that's buff, tell me how that feels. That doesn't feel too good.
No, he comes in and tells me about it. Yeah. He's like, it confuses the hell out of him. Like, what the hell did I do wrong?
No, it was like, that might have been the beginning of the Maximus line. When I first got them, I was getting everything under the sun.
Yeah.
They were dark red, light red, spangled, different types of spangled. And I would get the buff chicks, the partridge chicks. I'd get everything under the sun. I don't know. Well, I got one more thing to say, though. The latest ones, when I was talking to her about it, because in the beginning, I just thought that was normal in the beginning with the variations I was seeing within the Maximus line, until I started working with them, following the Founders Program, taking my advice from my mentors. Little by little, I saw them get more refined and defined. Or refined and more uniform. Where little by little, I was not seeing the buff showing up in the chipmunk. They were all green-legged. They all had the same traits. I wasn't getting many surprises. But then I started the Sangreal, and that's probably what Nancy's talking about most, because that would bewilder me. That it seemed like they were going really good, but yet that recessive would pop up every now and then and surprise me. It took a while to get to a point when they were predictable too.
No, what I was thinking about were the black pearls.
Yeah.
Every now and then.
That did surprise me. Yeah, because of the dominant black. I thought I would have them fine-tuned a little quicker because of the dominant black, but the recessive's hiding in there,
Yeah.
So, yeah, now they're all coming black. All the chicks are black. They all look the same. They look great, But over generations, they're going to start looking more genetically uniform, and you're going to see a lot of reliability in them. What do we got here? Okay, so
I've got two questions start, so you don't have that much.
Isolation speeds up genetic improvement. Yeah, because if you're sticking with that family, you're committed to that family, and you're selectively breeding and improving them, calling out the crap as you're seeing them, the deleterious genes and all the defects and anything that's substandard, little by little, you're going to get there. And it's like you're going to see a lot of change in the cleanup process. And then when you get into the foundation stage, it does slow down a little bit, but improvement is exponential in some ways. The only times it changes it when you add new blood and start completely over, and you're like, what did I do? So let me see what I got here. Yep. Undesirable genes removed from the population. Outside genes are excluded. Isolation strengthens the selection, and then it ensures that the genetics that the genetics that you desire contribute to the next generation. That's important. Okay. So let's go ahead and answer a few questions, and let me look this over real quick.
Okay. Oh, this is more of a statement. This is what Henny Fowl does with worming. He uses 12 milligrams Scoville red pepper oil for worms and mites mixed with feed, and he hasn't had any issues with worms and mites in over a decade. You know, it's funny that you're saying that because we have pepper trees aligning our whole property, and those seeds are all over inside our pens, and we never have any problems with worms.
Okay, let me say something about that. I'm not crapping all over what they're saying at all. Okay, and I believe the natural way is the way to go. But I will say this still, whether you're using a natural method or a chemical or a pesticide. Wow, I can hear my air conditioner went off, and all of a sudden I can hear. This is so, wow, that was really loud. Could you hear me okay? Could you hear the?
Yeah, I couldn't hear the air conditioner at all.
God, it was like I could barely hear myself think. Okay, understand this, and I want people to understand this the symbiotic of between the chicken and the worms, because this is why people worm every 2 weeks, or they worm every month. They have them on worming programs. Is that some worms in the body is necessary for the bird to be able to build immunity to the worms, so that when they get infested or they get hit really hard, their body can actually fight some of that on their own. Okay, so some worms are you need some worms in the body. So although I'm okay, I just thought about it when it popped up, that whether you're using a chemical or a pesticide or a natural wormer like this, understand that it's not, the idea is not to get rid of all the worms. So.
Okay, good to know. All right. I know that the time on how long it takes to make a strain varies based on how good or bad the starting birds are. So exact times are impossible. But what is the average timeline to make a strain?
See, we're back where he answered his question for him. He answered his question himself. It really does depend on the quality of bird you start with and how many issues they have hiding within them. Okay. It could take, I would say a minimum, I'll give them this. I would say a minimum of 5 years. I would say 5 years, you kind of know whether you're going in the right direction. 10 years to say that you have a strain, and then maybe 12, 15 years to say they're exceptional. You know, it takes time, you know. But I mean, well, look at this. Where's that one picture? Okay, so obviously my seed fowl in the top, the ones are how they are today. But for a long time, they were looking like this. And I really thought this was the foundation of the birds. I thought this was the best they were going to get. And that was probably 15 years in.
At least.
Yeah. And then the bottom ones are how they are today. So I think they improved exponentially, quite a bit, actually. So you're never done. Okay. You're never done. That's probably what you should take from it. But I find every stage of the Founders Program is exciting, especially in the beginning, because you're seeing changes, a lot of change right away. Okay. And, yeah. So isolation allows development of specialized strains. Okay. So although some strains are selectively bred for a specific purpose, and they see some progress if they keep their yard closed from outside influences, but if they stay with it, their strain becomes very unique, even with game fowl. Although game fowls should all have the same type conformation. They should have their different varieties, but those colors are they should be standard for those particular colors. If you look at the difference between let's say you have birds from two different breeders, but they're both really good breeders, you're going to still see some unique things about those birds that stand out. Okay. And that's that breeder putting his imprint on that particular family. And you're only going to get that if you practice isolation, because you're not going to get that from bringing in outside blood, thinking you're going to improve them, because whatever you see is going to be temporary. But if I can go in someone's yard and they all look the same, they have all the same characteristics, and they stand out, it's like, wow, you walk on there and you're like, wow, not only are they the same, but they're so, in many ways, they represent their breed really well, but still they're different. To me, that's awesome. And you get that from practicing good isolation. So what's the necessities of a unique strain? Inbreeding is going to be a necessity. You got to be willing to do the inbreeding. Keeping a closed yard, which is your isolation. Avoiding contamination. Allowing hidden traits to be expressed, but knowing what to do with them. And then purifying those traits and then improving them to homozygosity. Am I preaching?
I got to tell you a little story.
Okay.
So I was a little worried about Sue because she never misses an episode. And of course, she lives in Oklahoma, and they've always got constant crazy weather out there, whether it be cold, hot, or tornadoes. And so when you were talking, I checked up on her real quick. I'm like, everything good? You got bad weather? Because you're not here. She's like, oh, I'm just baking bread and hot peppers and stuff. And she goes, am I missing something? Did I miss a show? And I'm like, yes, get on here now. And so she gets on and she goes, phew, made it. Can't have a show without our Sue. Of course, Sean would explode if he didn't get a hello from Sue either. So he really appreciates her being around as well. But yeah. You know what, Sue? You're going to have to go back and watch the beginning, because we did a little snippet of Kenny talking with Brian Reeder. It was really interesting.
Did she missed the beginning of it?
She missed she just came on. So.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So go back and check that out.
Yeah. Okay. So I can't talk today. Isolation prevents disease as an outside genetic influence. Okay. Viruses, bacteria, parasites, these are all evolutionary forces that can change your family. Not only could it change the way how healthy they are, but it could change the way they look. Okay. Exposure to disease, but knowing how to selectively breed to the healthy ones, getting rid of the sick ones, they build a resistance over time. Okay. You can't build a resistance unless they're exposed to the disease. So that's weighing the good with the bad. Okay. I'm not going to say go get your birds all sick and see if you can recover from it. And they're good, but they need to adapt to their environment for sure. Okay. And a lot of times we're starting with birds that are from various farms who have a lot of disease issues or medicating. You're going to be putting birds unrelated together. They're definitely going to affect each other. And you're going to see that in the offspring. And the idea is to get them on the ground, get as many as you can so that you can select properly, create the family, work them off the medications in time. Because if you don't, it's going to affect the population, in that you're going to see problems with the reproductive system, as far as whether they're fertile, whether the chicks hatch. You're going to see lower intensity in their performance. You could even lose your most important birds. Okay. It's going to change the way you select. So it's going to change the selection pressures, introduce chronic diseases. Now, not only are you going to get to some diseases or be affected or exposed to some diseases, but some you can fix. Sometimes they can recover from it. But what I find is most diseases are chronic. It seems like they get sick, they seem to recover, and then they get sick again. Every time they're stressed or something happens, they start expressing or showing they become symptomatic of these diseases, and you never seem to get rid of them. Okay. I think that's why people are convinced that when they see a storm coming or they see issues that are going to make them all start rattling, they start giving all their birds antibiotics. They start trying to get ahead of the game. Well, start selecting your way there. Start getting rid of the birds actually expressing the disease, breed to the healthy ones or the ones that are the healthiest, and get yourself to a point when you have a family that's not only healthy and vigorous, but they're hopefully eventually resistant to those disease, and you won't have to deal with that ever again. Okay, because this is just going to weaken the strain.
Yeah, you want to get to that point because, say, Sue, with the different temperatures that she deals with, one day it can be 50 degrees, the next day it can be -1, and then the next day after that it could be 80 degrees. I mean, so the weather really fluctuates all over the place, and your birds have to be tough enough to be able to handle those different situations. They get lots of wind, so that's very stressful on your birds, and they got to be able to, the birds have to be able to handle that and have the immune system that's going to get them through that naturally.
So what's happening too is that they're stressing, and that's usually going to, if they don't have a good immune system, it's definitely going to show, the diseases are going to be expressed. They're going to become symptomatic for different diseases. But if they're, how do I want to say this? If they're not selectively bred and they're not selectively bred in a way that they're adapting properly to their surroundings, that stress is going to weaken the immune system too. So to me, it all goes back to selection. You got to select the birds that are the healthiest, that are adapting well to their environment, and then get rid of everything that's not. And sometimes that's going to feel like you're getting rid of a lot of birds, but eventually it's going to pan out. I've seen it here. I've had a yard full of sick birds. I had every medication on my shelf. And so I know what it's like to have to deal with sick birds a lot. And it seemed like I did get rid of most of them and held on to the ones that were the healthiest. And little by little, I got there to the point where I don't have any medications. I don't even think about medicating. I haven't seen a sick bird in years. I can't remember the last time I've seen a sick bird. I don't even worm my birds. I haven't wormed my birds in, I want to say it's almost 20 years now. I remember when we first started the show, I remember it was like 15 years. That was 5 years ago. So it's got to be like 20 years now. But like Nancy was saying, isolation, it acts like a biosecurity barrier. Yeah. It's that mountain that's keeping away all the contamination, all the diseases, things like that. Do everything you can to protect the integrity of your family, genetically, health-wise, the whole bit.
Yeah, it's like Henny Fowl here is saying, look for any reason to cull the bird, not a reason to keep a bird. Yeah, it will clean up the yard fast.
Yeah. Tony Seville, my mentor, him and I used to always joke that it's that one bird that you're feeding every day and it has a flaw of some kind. And you fed that bird because you don't want to deal with it yet, or you're not sure if you should deal with it. And you're feeding all your other birds, but you're still thinking about that bird over there. And you do that every day until you get to a point where you say, okay, enough of this. And I'm gonna get rid of that bird. All of a sudden, we used to kid about this. Your whole yard all of a sudden looks good because you got rid of that one yard, because that one bird leaves an impression on you. Think about the impression it leaves on the people visiting your farm. Because if they see that bird with that flaw, especially if it's noticeable, that thing's going to be on their mind, and it's going to be it's going to weigh heavy on their mind the minute they see it, and it's the thing that's going to stay on their mind when they leave your farm. Your birds could be beautiful throughout the yard, but that one bird's going to stick in their head, and that's going to leave an impression on them.
But if
your reputation.
If you're using strict biosecurity, there's nobody that's going to be on your farm in the first place. So it's all on you. But if you
No. Biosecurity has something to do with diseases, but I'm also talking about defects.
Yeah, well, but I'm talking about people coming on your yard and seeing your bird, and seeing a bird with a defect. That's stopping the story. Guns right there. You don't have visitors on your farm.
Yeah, that's a different story.
But you do have people that like to video their birds, and so they're showing off a flawed bird. And
don't
show off your flawed birds.
That's the dangers of videoing your birds or taking pictures. You better know the breed. You better know what represents a breed, because I see it all the time. People are proud of them, and they're videoing their birds, and they're doing this on a regular basis. And it's like, wow, the type of that bird's completely off. The conformation is completely off. The color is crazy and all over the place. That leaves an impression on people. So that's the problem with sharing your bird. You better make sure they're right, because maybe some people aren't going to know. Maybe some people are going to see it in a different way. They're going to be blind to the problems that bird may have, but people are they're becoming more knowledgeable. My members especially becoming more knowledgeable. I see them mentioning it. I see them putting their name on different things and say, hey, you better watch for this squirrel tail or rye tail, or or it's got stork leg. I can see my members in there trying to give them advice. And then I got members that are always sending me pictures, hey, check out this and check out that. Frank and I used to do that all the time, where we would send pictures to each other. Hey, check this out. We got to where it was so often we just stopped doing it. But I do collect pictures. I put them in my wall of shame just in case I need them, because they're just good examples of poor type, poor conformation defects and things like that. But you're exposing the faults in those birds when you do that, for sure. Yeah.
Well, it's a little unfortunate because not everybody knows what good conformation of body type and all that good stuff are, and that's why that's why we're out here. We're trying to teach to the masses to let everybody know, because eventually we're going to lose the breed if we just continue to crossbreed and make a mockery of all the different strains out there of the American game fowl.
Nancy, I wonder if some people just don't care.
Yeah, you have those out there. I think I don't know, Sue can probably contest to this, that it's a little bit better on the domestic side because they have a standard perfection of what, say, a Rhode Island Red is supposed to look like. So I don't know if they're having the same issues that we are in the American game world, where you have Rhode Island Reds that are being crossed with other Rhode Island Reds that just make the tail go wonky, or now the legs are the wrong color or whatever.
They do.
It's sad. It's really sad, but
it's probably worse than American games. It actually is. So, and then so let's look at artificial selection versus natural selection. In nature, isolation evolves through geographic separation, adaptation, which creates speciation. Okay. If we look at chickens as isolating, humans act as the isolating force. We breed. I can't talk also. When we breed, we if we're doing it right, we're keeping them separate. Why can't I talk today? It's like I can't spit anything out today. We keep the birds separate. We're selectively breeding them. Okay. We're hopefully creating, sometimes we're creating new breeds, but we're definitely trying to create new strains. And if we're doing things properly, we're keeping them pure through isolation and improving them through selective breeding, hopefully using a proper breeding program. I think that's pretty much all I want to, let me see. I think that's it, Yeah, that's pretty much it. Everything else we've talked about. I just want to emphasize the importance of isolation, but I felt like if I was going to do that, I need to really talk about its enemy, which is gene flow, and to help you understand. See, I'm a big proponent. If you understand Mother Nature, if you understand evolutionary biology, I think you understand domestication. I think you understand the process of selective breeding and the creating and improvement of our own strains, because they're very similar. If you could look at almost any factor as far as or any mechanism of evolution, I can relate it right away to something that's in our wheelhouse. Gene flow is a big one. Outcrossing, crossbreeding, infusion. So many people think it's just harmless. Oh, I'm just adding a new gene, or I'm improving them. I'm giving them something they didn't have. Maybe sometimes, but most of the time you're just changing them. You're ruining them, or you're adding things that you didn't know that they had. Okay. When you'd be surprised how much progress you can make by just sticking with the birds you have, and little by little making them better over time. So, you have any questions? We'll finish it up. And
No, we're pretty much done. I don't have any questions. Josh,
Okay.
you got any more questions? We all good? He's
Okay.
probably frantically typing. Yeah, I'll think of one.
So, you want to wrap it up?
Okay, just a reminder that Monday we're going to have Peter on. That will be 6 o'clock, not 5 o'clock. We tried 5 o'clock. It didn't work. Not everybody was remembering that it was 5 o'clock and not 6 o'clock. And we started the show and nobody was there. So we're like, okay, we after 12 minutes.
I've
said,
never
okay,
had that happen before. That was a members roundtable.
We had 2 people. So
Yeah.
after 12 minutes, we decided, okay, now we're going to stick back to 6 o'clock. And then I did ask the couple people that were there. I'm like, is 6 o'clock better for you? And they're like, yeah. So I'm like, okay, we'll just keep it at 6. So 6 o'clock on Monday with Peter. And of course, Friday, we'll have another show. We will not have a round table next Wednesday. Remember, it's every other weekend, other week. So, and Josh is saying, he's laughing at me. I'm good tonight, Nancy. I'll have a good one for Monday. Thank you. So we really appreciate you all being here tonight. And is today Friday? Today's Friday. So everybody have a good weekend.
Okay. So we'll see you guys later. Thanks for showing up, and I hope you enjoyed it. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that it?
That's it. Sue, I want some bread. She's making bread. Okay. Bye.
See you later.